Okay, so good role play. So as we said, the first role play was to say the lead in. So you'd say, you know, I pulled up in front of the house and I'm focused, and I walk to the front door, ring the bell, and I smile and I pay them a sincere compliment, take them to the kitchen table, sit down, talk about anything but real estate. Maybe it's my brochure that's sitting on the table. They may say something about your hobbies or your bio or something. Once real estate is brought up, turn on your computer or open your book, and you say, here's what I have for you, just 7 easy steps for us to go through to help you to move forward. Fair enough? And they go, sure. Say, first thing I'm going to do is ask you a series of questions. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? This way I can find out what you want to accomplish. Fair enough? See the words?
Yes.
You hear the interaction sort of thing, pulling them into it? After that, could you show me around the property, please? I'm going to take some notes. Maybe point out some of the features, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and you might say their first names. I'm just using that as to remind you to say their names once in a while. And you want to still kind of get them engaged. So you say, so point out some of the features, please, for me. Sounds good? You see how I'm kind of saying something to get them in? And then after that, we'll come back to the kitchen table here. Now, you're not going to use all this animation I use. I'm just doing it for impact communication so you remember. And my voice inflection may even be a little louder sometimes. But you want to make sure that you get back to the kitchen table and you say, and then we're going to go over the marketing plan. Now, remember, we're not doing this yet. We're telling them what we're going to do. We just told them, we're going to look at your property. You point out some of the features, and then we'll come back to the kitchen table and we'll tell you how we get the job done. We're going to show you, and you may have some questions on this, but how we market your home. Then if you like myself, you notice I keep saying that after number 3, I keep saying, and if you like my company and my marketing plan, then we'll move towards price. And I'm going to show you how most successful sellers pick the right price. I have some information right here in what color folder?
Yellow.
Yeah, yellow folder. I have some information on the sales in the area, the recent sales. And we will figure out a price together, and we'll put that on a net sheet. And we'll take off all the costs when the property closes.
Ding, ding.
Thank you. Thank you. And then you're going to see what you're going to put in your pocket, because that's what you want, yes?
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or Bob and Sue, or, you know. And then after that, and you're just sitting down when you're doing this, after that, you can just point at the thing. The whole presentation is designed to keep you on track.
Yeah.
Not to give to them. Remember that. Get over that right now. We gave them our pre-list. We show them how everything is done, guiding the whole process, the whole presentation through the process. It's a guide. Keeps you on track. So after that, if we have the net sheet completed, then I'll explain some of the forms. Even if they say, well, we're probably not ready to list this, so no problem. I want to give you some of the facts so you can make a decision on your timing, but you need to know a few things that are on the forms as well, and it'll just take a minute. You know, you might say, fair enough again. Don't say that too much, but say it once in a while. Make sense? And then from there, if you feel like you need some questions answered, we'll address them at that time, and finally we'll make a decision, a mutual decision, decide if we're going to work together or not. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to, or you could just go straight there and say, so I'm going to get started with those questions. Fair enough? And you turn the page. So page 1 of your book is the sales process, telling them what you're going to do before you do it. And page 2 is what? Now, you just said what you're going to do. So what is page 2?
Questions.
The questions, right? What's page 3? Something to remind you to preview the property. But your questions might be 2 pages. So I'm going to have numbers come up here, but they may not jive with your actual presentation. I'm just saying page 1 is the sales process. Page 2 might be the questions. Page 3 might be a visual to remind you to preview the property. Page 4 might be your marketing plan. Page 5 might be a net sheet. Page 6 might be something to remind you to explain the forms. Page 7 would be a series of, or excuse me, a question mark maybe to remind you to ask them if they have any questions. And page 8. So you have 7 steps, but a minimum of how many pages now?
8.
8, because that one page is telling you what these pages are going to be. But some of your steps may be more than 1 page, like your marketing plan. I got 5 areas that you need to touch on, so you may turn that into 5 pages. So your questions might be 2 pages, and a reminder to preview the property might just be something, a visual to remind you that's 1 page. And then your marketing plan may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. I'll explain that as we're teaching it. And then your pricing segment may only be 1 page with the net sheet on your listing presentation. And then explaining the forms might only be something to remind you. And then questions, question mark is only on 1 page, mutual decision, a handshake is on 1 page. So your presentation really shouldn't be much more than, or any less than about 11 or 12 pages. That's it. And you double side them and laminate them. Or have them as PowerPoint on your computer, or both. I would have both, why? Because you say that, do you want me to use my computer here or the book? And they'll say what they like, okay? I would probably say it doesn't matter. Or I might say, I use the book. Or some people might say, I like the computer better. Now, you would have the computer sideways so they can kind of see it. And your book, you just leave it this way. If they want to see it, you just say, well, here, I can show you. But don't set up some sort of flip thing like this, because then they're never looking at you. They're looking at this while you're looking at this. It doesn't work, okay? Don't do that. All right. So let's go to the questions. Let me tell you something. There's some keys to questioning a seller. Oh, by the way, remember your 4 components of the salesmanship ingredients I said? You got names and visuals and facial expressions and questions. As a trainer, I have 4 areas that I need to focus on when I'm teaching. Can I tell you what they are? Mm-hmm. And then if you want to write them down, that's only for you when you're presenting someday as a trainer, if you're interested, okay? But when you're ever doing public speaking, there's 4 things that you always have to touch on. First thing is educate. Second thing is entertain. Third thing is motivate. And 4th is get the audience to participate. That's what we do as trainers. So if you're ever doing a presentation to other realtors in the office, make sure you touch on all 4. And what are they again? You want to make sure it's an educational seminar. And you always throw in a little bit of what? Entertainment or funny things, jokes, right? This is not for a realtor. Everyone clear on that?
Yes.
You're not going to do educate, entertain, motivate, participate in the same way with the seller. But, or would you? When you're doing a listing process, you are educating, aren't you? And consulting. And do you want to be having some fun with some people? Like you don't want to be too fun if they're not into it, or you don't want to be not enough. So you entertain in some degree where people are having a good time a bit. And motivate was the next one, right? I need to motivate you guys to go out and do some business, get excited about your career, but I need you to participate in the class, not just sit there. I mean, put up your hand or say cha-ching or have some fun, and you want to do that. So I guess those 4 components would also help you on a listing presentation, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so keys to questioning a seller. I'll just put them up and talk about them here. First thing you have to understand is that you need to use open-ended questions to be able to get people to give you expanded information or to get them to open up and talk. Got to get them talking, yes? The more they talk, the more they, realistically, the more they'll like you, the more they'll open up, the better chance of them using you. So you need to have pre-planned questions. I'm going to give you the pre-planned questions. So you don't have to invent the wheel again. You just take it all. You paid for this course, so that's obvious why you should get this. The other thing is, like I said, I've had some people pay and I give them all the stuff and some of them fight me. They think that this is another, and I mean, if I was to be blunt with them, I'd say, how many properties you sold in the last year? If they said I sold 75 and I worked 40 hours a week, I go, well, you should be up here teaching. I'll be, no problem. I would be happy to share the stage or pass it on to them, no problem. But I never get that. Oh, I sold 6 last year. Oh yeah, well, so obviously your way gets 6, my way gets 50. So that's just the way it is, yes? So I give you pre-planned questions. You need to trust me and use the exact questions I give you. And when people answer your questions, what should you do? People answer your questions, what should you do?
Write down the answer.
Can I hear from everybody?
Right.
Write down. Yeah, write down. So you ask them a question and they tell you, so you should write it down, yes? Maybe you only ask what applies to them, but if there's a question that doesn't apply to them, you want to confirm that it doesn't, or confirm that you have the answer already. You may have gotten it on the phone. When you were talking to them on the phone, remember when you bona fide an appointment?
Yep.
You might have asked them, 5 questions, and then when you're getting some CMA information, you may have asked them a number of questions. So then, when you're asking them questions in person, some of them may be the same, so you wouldn't ask it again if you have the answer, but you may confirm the answer, yes?
Yes.
Now just remember, the questions become progressively bolder. So I'm going to use something here called, let me just move a few things out of the way here for me. Put my chair here. Something called oh, there it is again. You collecting that money, I hope?
$10.
I need one.
$10
That
bucks.
was you, right? Who was it?
You know who it is?
No, well, it was him, but before.
As long as you got it. Okay, so I'm going to use something called a guts gauge. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we got 15 questions we're going to give you. Okay, we call it a guts gauge. So you guys are going to help me out. When I tell you the questions, then I'm going to ask you how you feel about asking them before I actually tell you more about why we asked them. It's kind of backwards. You okay to participate that way?
Yeah.
So if one person says, yeah, but Dwayne, what does that mean? I'll say, I want you to tell me how you feel about it before I explain what it means. Okay? So I'm going to give you a series of questions, but just remember this. The greatest salespeople in the world are not the best what?
Talkers.
Talkers. They are the best
Listeners.
listeners. All right. So again, I'm going to give you the first 5. Then I'm going to go through each one just to ask you how you feel on the guts gauge. And then we'll talk about each question. Sounds good?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to push the button in a second here. But I just want to tell you a quick story while you're finishing writing here. Power of questions, we explained it with the 2 of hearts in lesson 2. Do you remember that? Do you remember the 2 of hearts? Show of hands if you do. Yeah, the power of questions, right? And who was here for lesson 2? I mean, who was here mentally as well? Well, then you remember the 2 hearts, right? So, just kidding. Some people you forget, I get that. So the power of questions applies here as well. You're actually asking questions to guide them right to signing the documents through the steps. How's that sound? You know, imagine this. Imagine there's some people in the Sahara Desert. Everybody's heard of the Sahara Desert?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, where's that, by the way?
Africa.
North Africa, yeah, somewhere there, yeah. And have you ever heard of a sandstorm? I used to live in Phoenix. I saw a sandstorm close up. Really bizarre.
I hit a sandstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a sandstorm in Phoenix, and it literally in our house, it was in the middle of the day, like 4 o'clock. The whole place went black. And we had to turn lights on. That's how thick a sandstorm is. So imagine in the Sahara Desert, this guy's, he's got his camel, and he's got all his robes on, and his headgear and all that kind of stuff, and the sandstorm hits, and he's kind of like holding his camel, the rope, I guess, whatever you call it, for this, and they're kind of going like, and somehow this is just a story, by the way, so it never happened, but there's a point to it. You guys with me?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously he kind of stumbles across. Somebody had put up a tent, and they were in there protected from the sandstorm. It was really held hard to the ground. I don't know. Remember, it's just a story. Okay, major sandstorm. So he says, "Hey, is anybody in there?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, well, come on in, right?" And the guy, he knows that his camel is his livelihood. For just a story again, right? And he's, and he said, "Okay," and he's thinking, "Okay, I gotta get in there." So he comes in and leaves his camel outside. And he starts talking to the guy. Maybe they share a tea or whatever else they might drink or something, and they get to know each other a little bit. A couple of, smile and a little compliment and, a couple of questions. They talk. Then he says, remember, this is maybe after 5, 10, 15 minutes. He says, "Hey, it's pretty bad out there. Do you mind if I just get my camel's nose in just because it's getting..." The guy says, "Yeah, no problem. Just stick it on the bottom there." I don't know if anybody knows how big a camel's nose is, but it's what the size of our head. So then they start talking some more, have another drink, or another tea or something like that. Another 15, 20 minutes goes by, and he says, "Do you think I could get its head in enough so its eyes are not getting..." "Sure, yeah, no problem." Now this guy, they're talking, and he's asking questions, and he's talking about his plans and all this stuff, right? And then Now, you gotta understand, if this area is just as big as where I'm kinda standing, you know, this fellow's sitting here with his leg crossed, and you're here, and the camel's head's in, and then you gotta kinda move up a bit. Then he says, do you mind if I let the camel get its whole head in? Oh yeah, no problem. Then he talked again for another 15, 20 minutes. Two-hump camel, by the way. It's another half hour. He says, can I get him in past his first hump? Oh yeah, for sure, you know, and then again, the pattern continues. He asks questions, talking, they have another drink, and it could be tea, I'm not just saying alcohol, but you know, getting to know each other more. And within about an hour, the whole camel is in the middle of the tent, and they're all squished out in each corner talking to each other. And the guy with the tent is fine with the camel being in the middle of the tent. What do you think of that? What do you think would have happened if he had said, can I come in, and he turned his camel around butt first and started pushing it in first? You think the guy would have said no problem?
No.
But he got his camel in the other way. What did he do? He asked him a bunch of questions, and he got him talking, and he started feeling more comfortable with him, and he felt like doing a favor for him, and you know, or he wanted to follow through with him, whatever, right? It's the same thing in sales. If we close
Cha-ching.
too quick, no cha-ching. So we have to take our time, okay? So let me give you the first 5 questions. Fair enough?
Yes.
So this could be page 2 of your listing presentation. And the first 5 questions, number 1 was, you know, just to get them to start talking. When did you first start thinking of selling? So they start telling you anything that's relevant, you start writing it down. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Because you're looking for a what?
a problem.
Problem. And you just let them talk, and you say their name. So Bob and Sue, so how long have you folks lived here? So I'm giving you something to start with. You can still ad-lib a little bit, or, you know, like, make it more personalized with your personality, but the same question, just, so Bob and Sue, I'm just curious, how long have you folks lived here? So it doesn't say folks in there. You don't have to say that word either. You can say, how long have you and you and your family lived here? You know what I mean, right, guys? And then you say, so what was your original purchase price when you moved here? I'm just curious. We're just trying to get them to talk, right? Say, is there any improvements you've done since you moved in? Yeah, I was just curious. If there's one thing you could change about your place, what would it be? Maybe it's one of the reasons you're moving. You need more room or whatever. But just ask the question. So let's do the guts gauge. Can we do that? See how you feel. How many of you can do 2 things at once? So just Peter. Okay, so I better wait. Yeah, you got to finish writing the questions. Did you get all 5 down there? And when you're done, put up your hands. Got all 5. All right. So let's see. Without us talking more about the questions, see, some of the new people may think, I don't really know why I asked that question. So they may feel really uncomfortable asking it, especially if they don't know exactly what it's about. Does that make sense? So I want you to feel that right now. I don't want to go into it too much right now until we do the guts gauge. So on a scale of 1 to 5 on the guts gauge, how do you feel about asking, when did you first start thinking of selling? 5 being the bolder, gutsier question. Give me a number, please.
1.
1, yeah, that's pretty easy to ask that one. Would you agree? Yes. So how do you feel about asking them, hey, how long have you lived here?
1.
Yeah, that's probably a 1. How do you feel about asking them, what did they pay when they bought it?
3.
By the way, you already know it's in the folder.
Yes.
But why, I'm not going to say why do you ask them, but I'm going to ask you how you feel about it. We're going to talk about why we ask it in a second. But how do you feel about it? 1 to 5.
5.
2. How do you feel about asking, hey, what improvements have you made since you lived here?
1.
And what about, if there was one thing you could change about this place, what would it be?
1.
Yeah. Some people might feel it's a little more gutsy, but I'll put a 1 for you because you said so. So now let's figure out why we're asking. So we already know the main reason we ask all the questions is to get them to talk, yes? But some of the questions have another reason. Some don't. Just to get them to talk. We're just making small talk. Why do we want to ask them when they first started thinking of selling? Why do you think we want to know that? You know? I mean, if they just started thinking about it, that'd be good to know. And you're one of the first people they're talking to. What we said, yeah, we've been thinking about selling for quite some time, and, you know, we've talked to about 30 realtors. So how do you feel about that one?
Oh,
So wouldn't it be nice just to know?
yeah, why?
But really, it's mostly to get them to start talking. More than likely, they're just gonna say, you know, we just started thinking about it, or, you know, after New Year's Day, we had a New Year's resolution, we're selling the house this year, and we thought we'd list it in the spring, and that's why you're here. Now, this is the fall right now, so there could be another reason. They started thinking about it in the summer, but get them to talk about it, that's all. Keep it simple. Use the KISS theory. What does keep it simple stand for? K stands for keep, I for it, S for simple, and there's another S. Keep it simple.
Stupid.
No, we don't use that word in this class. Keep it simple, salesperson. Keep it simple, salesperson. Okay? And so don't overthink anything. In other words, what did you say last week? Don't overthink. Just follow the steps. I get people overthink it so much they don't do the steps. They even tell them we're going to do the steps, and then they don't do them. They're assuming the clients are thinking this way. They're messing up their success with their own assumptions. Also, it's just a mess. So what you have to do is just nod your head, smile, ask a question, write down the answer, move on to the next step. That's it. That's all you do. So we told them what we're going to do before we do it, and then we said, okay, so let me start with those questions. So you turn the page, and voila. First 5 questions are on the first page, or maybe the first 8 are on the first page, or maybe all 15 are on the page. And when you're writing down the answers, where do you think you're writing down? And then you're not going to write them on this page because that's going to be laminated or it's on your computer. So how many of you printed off the call form last week? So when you're talking to somebody on the phone, you're writing down information, right?
Yeah.
Then you take that call form. Remember this yellow folder?
Yeah.
On the inside cover, make a note of this if you have to, you staple it in right there. Everyone's got that? And when you're asking questions, that's an opportunity for you to open your folder. You say, let me ask you some questions. And you open your folder, and the call form's right there, and there should be some space to write some answers down. If not, have a blank piece of paper right there beside it and start writing down the answers. And you want to write down answers. Don't sit there and look at them and nod and just ignore their answers. You write it down so they feel like everything they say is really important to you. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Why did we ask them how long they lived here? So, about 7 years. That sounds okay, doesn't it? We've lived here 7 weeks. Doesn't sound good, does it?
No.
You know, I only had it once where I didn't really know how long they lived there, and I remember asking them, and they said something like 3 months, and I thought, well, that's weird. Or 6 months, I think they said. I thought, that's weird. And that particular one, I had listed it at a good price, and they called within weeks to cancel. When I looked at the history, they'd been trying to sell it like every month with a different realtor at different, really high prices. I was the only one that got them at the price it should be, and then they backed out real quick. So I don't want to work with somebody like that who's always trying to, they don't understand real estate, and they just want to put it on at a high price for a month. Okay, so why did we ask, what improvements have you made? Now you haven't seen the house yet. You've seen the front, you've seen the hallway, and you've seen the kitchen. But you haven't seen the whole thing. So, but why would we ask them what improvements have you made? There might be some that you can't see. Now, give me an example of an improvement you can't see. Well, behind the drywall there might be what?
Electrical.
Electrical, you can't see that, right?
Plumbing.
Stuff like that, right? If there's one thing you could change about your home, what would it be? So again, all of them are to get them to talk, but some of them have another little reason. This one might be, I know it's unique, but some sellers think their home's worth more than it really is. And that's not unique, actually. A lot of them try to get more. I got the heavy-duty nails and the gold toilets and whatever. It's bizarre sometimes, but you're just planting a seed to let them realize that whatever they wish they had different, somebody else coming in and looking at the house may feel the same way. But you don't say that. If there's one thing you could change, what would it be? And they go, I wish we had a bigger kitchen. You go, okay. What do?
Write it down.
Write it down. And you don't start saying other people will feel the same, but you're just getting an awareness to start being created with them without you really saying it. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give you the next 5. What's the balance of your mortgage? How did you arrive at your price? How do you feel about owner financing? Where would you like to move to? And when would you like to be in your new home? So let's do the guts gauge first. Can we do that, gang?
Yes.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel about asking what's the balance of your mortgage?
3.
2. All right. How do you feel about asking them, how did you arrive at your price? 1 to 5?
3,
4.
3.
2.
How do you feel about asking them, how do you feel about owner financing? 1 to 5.
1.
1. Usually it's more. And where would you like to move to?
5.
When would you like to be there?
1.
So you can see you get a couple of easy questions and then something that's a little bolder. A couple of easy questions again and something else. You guys are trying to dig out some more stuff. You know, I can tell you right now, when you're doing it all the time, they're all ones in a way. But you got to admit, some of them might be like, oh, you know, maybe they might feel funny about it. But for you, they should be easy to ask. So let me give you, let's talk about these next 5 a bit. So why would we ask them, what's the balance of your mortgage?
Nothing to get paid.
You want to make sure you get paid, yeah. Good answer, hey? Right? Now, look at your prospecting track on the wall. The bona fide appointment checklist. Did it have that question on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you know the balance, would you say, what's the balance?
You gotta verify their answer.
Yeah. And the thing you did on the phone though is when you said, how much is your mortgage balance? If they said, we owe about $450, you would say, can you make sure you have a statement printed off from your account so I can use it for the net sheet when I get there? Remember that, it's very important. Okay. What if they told you on the phone that they didn't want to give out that information right now? Then you should still say, well, can you have a printed statement for me when I get there? Because we're going to do a net sheet, we'll have to know how much to take off, and they'll probably say, that's fine. So if you know, or you don't know, but you said, we want to make sure you have a statement. When you get to this question, you say, so I need to know the balance of your mortgage. Did you get something printed off? Do you have it right now? And they go, yeah, here it is. Or I talked to you on the phone, you said the mortgage balance was $450. Did you get a statement printed off just so we can get the, you know, the right numbers? And they say, yeah. If they don't, then you got to stop for a second and say, well, can we confirm it now? Because we need to know. Okay? If you ever have, I only heard this once from somebody. They said, oh, that's confidential information. I don't want to give it to you. What I would do if that's the case, I'd say, okay, hold on to that information. And when we get to the end, when I explain the forms, if you want to hire me, my fiduciary duties include a fiduciary duty that's called what? Confidentiality. Everybody knows your fiduciary duties. You wouldn't, if you don't, that means you're not a realtor because you take it in your course.
Yes.
And how many fiduciary duties do we have?
6.
6, right? That's not like a question. 6? But everybody knows this. And what are they? One was confidentiality. Give me 2 more.
Loyalty.
Undivided loyalty. This is, every realtor has to know this. So this class can easily give it to me. So you guys can just tell me, what are the other 4? Full accounting, another one. Give me another one. Reasonable care and skill. Give me another one. So I'm a seller, I'm asking you, what are your fiduciary duties? Think about how you're reacting right now on the listing appointment. Right now, you're like, right? You don't have the listing, you're done.
Disclosure,
So this full disclosure, yeah, so.
conflict of
So anyways, back on this here, we got the balance. Why do we ask them, how did they arrive at their price? Why do we ask them that? What do you think?
Because we want to see like what's going in their mind about
Yeah.
pricing. Are they
So-
pricing right?
Yeah, so let's say you're on the phone. Remember your prospecting track? Your bona fide appointment checklist? On there it says, can you tell me what price range home you live in? Or on the open-ended questions, the W5, it says, how much do you want for your house? What if they told you they don't know or they don't want to tell you, they just want to see what we think? Would we ask this question there?
No.
No, because they didn't tell us the price. So how can I say to them, how'd you arrive at your price? They're gonna go, what price? You're gonna go, I don't know. Well, you don't ask the question. You might say, how much do you want for your house? How much do you think you can get? So you might change the words. I'm exaggerating it a bit so you understand that the questions are important, but they can't all be asked the same way. You know, but let's say they told you on the phone, let's say it's a neighborhood where the average sale price is $800,000. And when you're on the phone with them, you said, how much do you want for your house? They go, $2 million. Now, you don't know that it's worth less than $2 million when they tell you. You don't know until after you bona fide the appointment and send your pre-list, when you get your brochure, when you get your folder put together and you look up the comparables and you're like, holy cow, in that neighborhood there's nothing over 900, right? So you still do your job. Don't worry about what they said. Don't get fooled by the price. When you get to this question, you might overact a little bit. You might go, okay, next question is, oh yeah, how did you arrive at your price anyways? Like, see my face? Like, it looks like I just bit into a lemon. How'd you arrive at your price? And they're like, what price? Well, you said $2 million on the phone. Oh, I was just kidding. I said, okay, well, how much do you think you can get for your house then? Well, I'd like to get about 900. Okay, write it down. So, you guys understanding how I'm doing this?
Yeah.
All right? How do you feel about owner financing? Why do you ask them that? How many of you don't know what owner financing is? In your course, you took it and they called it a VTB. What's that stand
Yes.
for?
Vendor take back.
Vendor take back. And you had a test on it. And so it's in those notes, just so you know. We may not remember right now, I know, and I sound like I'm picking on you, but truth of the matter is we know all this stuff. So, how do you feel about owner financing? Give me an answer. What do you think they might say?
No.
No, right? Because maybe they know what it means and they don't want to do it. So what do you write down?
No.
No. Or they might say yes. We'll do that if we can, sure, okay. Or they might say one other answer. What might they say? What's that? Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you what we'll do is, I'll just put down that maybe I can share some more information on that a little later, but for now we'll just carry on, okay? But what's the reason that you might try to get owner financing? It makes a home, if you want to make a note of any of this extra stuff, it makes a home more saleable. Makes a home more saleable, okay? Why do we ask, where would you like to move to? We said we wanted to ask them about their plans, yes? Yeah, where do you want to move to? We might be able to also figure out if we're going to get them to sign the buyer agreement. Where's the buyer agreement right now?
In folder.
In your folder.
Blue folder.
No, in this case
Yellow.
it's in your yellow folder.
Yellow.
Still in yellow?
You're on a listing appointment.
Okay.
But it wasn't a bad answer. I mean, you could have two folders, but you didn't know that they wanted you to help them buy. A tip that I'll mention a couple of times, best time to get buyer agency signed is right after you get them to sign the seller agreement. It's the easiest time. They just sign and you say, here, we're gonna help you buy a house too, just sign this one too, and then that paperwork's out of the way, and they're like, yeah, no problem. Nice and easy, right? Instead of you having to do it later, because you have to have it. When would you like to be in your new home? What did we ask that one for?
How much time we have to sell this house?
Yeah, we want to know the timing and stuff. Again, all of them are specifically designed to get them to start what?
Talk.
Talk.
Okay, and you write down the answers, and there's some underlying reasons